Honorable Men Discord. Tragic. Let's talk about it. All right, here we go again with more gun violence. This time in Newark, New Jersey. 2 police officers shot, 1 fatally shot. The other one's in the hospital recovering. And this happened near a McDonald's. This involved a 14-year-old who shot both police officers. One of the police officers, who's to my side, Joseph Azcona, was shot, and he didn't even exit his vehicle. He didn't get an opportunity to exit his vehicle when he was shot by this 14-year-old, and it's just a tragedy. There's no other way to put it. It's a tragedy. That officer was only 26 years old, and he was on the force for 5 years. After death, they promoted him to detective after he passed away. But who's to blame with situations like this? You know, do we blame the gun manufacturers? Do we blame the parents? Who do we blame? You know, I'm going to assume that this 14-year-old boy does not have a father in his life. I'm going to go put my neck out there and say he most likely doesn't have a father in his life. And I'm going to say that also for the 2 boys responsible for the murders in Texas, with the 30-year-old rapper and his 5-year-old daughter. I know these single mothers are doing their best, but I'm going to tell you right now, if the fathers were in these boys' lives, a 14-year-old should not be thinking he could actually point the gun at a police officer, much less shoot it. All right, because the fathers, that's your job, to let the boys know how to conduct themselves out there in public. And first of all, 14 years old, you need a spanking. All right, let's make spankings great again. I was raised on it. Some of you viewers watching probably were raised on spankings. These young boys are reckless. And, you know, again, the mothers are doing their best, but at a certain point in time, these boys are immune to the spankings by their mothers. All right. Had there been fathers in the household, these things wouldn't be happening, because a good spanking will set a boy straight. And I know some people look at that in 2025 as abuse by the parents, but it worked for me. Okay. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't like it, but it worked for me. It kept me in line. All right. So I'm an advocate for it. You know, there's no love lost towards my father for spanking me. Right. It definitely kept me in line. It kept me away from the law and kept me away from a jail cell. So I'm pro spankings. All right. But let's just get into this report with details on what happened. Let's take a listen.
At 7:33, a Newark police officer was killed in a shootout, and another officer remains in critical condition. Police say the gunman is just 14 years old. Let's get to Eyewitness News reporter Marcus Solis live for us outside of University Hospital in Newark. Marcus.
And Pedro, according to the police union, this was a young officer who lost his life last night in that deadly shooting. Another officer here remains in critical condition. This taking place last night around 6:30 at a McDonald's. There's a White Castle as well, Broadway and Carteret, the area of Newark where this happened last night. The circumstances are unclear, but we understand the gunman, 14 years old, also injured in the shooting. His condition is unknown, brought here to University Hospital. Now, the officers, it is unclear what they were responding to, but both were hit by that gunfire, also brought here, where one was pronounced dead. The other is in critical condition. Several people taken into custody, though it is unclear who is being charged at this point. Police still sorting this all out after a deadly night of violence that took the life of a Newark police officer.
There's no words to describe what happened. It shouldn't happen. People should feel safe to be out here. For someone with a badge to die in the line of duty, it's
Well, we are expecting an update. We are expecting an update in a couple of hours from the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, which is leading this investigation. We're live in Newark. Marcus Solis, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Marcus.
Just ridiculous. You know, there was a point in time when I would find myself blaming the gun manufacturers, but but here's the thing. I'm not going to blame the gun manufacturers because there's many registered gun owners out there in this country that are responsible with their firearms. All right. This is a matter of a 14-year-old getting his hands on the guns. How does that happen? Right? How do any of these young adults get their arms on firearms, much less some of the ones that they're using, these high-powered assault rifles? How are they getting their hands on this? But at the root of all of this, the guns don't load themselves, and the guns don't fire off themselves, right? So who's to blame? And it honestly, it starts in the household. It starts in the household. In all these situations, if I'm to investigate, I want to know more about the family. I want to know where they live, what the neighborhood's like. I want to know how many people in the household. I want to know what they were like in school. I want to know were they involved in sports, because that's another thing. When the kids don't have anything to keep them occupied, that idle time can turn destructive. But again, and what is the solution? The solution is for fathers to get more involved. So the men that's out there, if they're not locked up or dead, if you are responsible for a child, especially a boy, you need to sit that boy down and tell him the do's and don'ts, and continue to tell him the do's and don'ts, because a 14-year-old running around at night firing at a police officer is unacceptable. And now, unfortunately for him, his life is pretty much finished. You know, I'm going to keep a close watch to this, because I don't know how this is going to go down for him, because he's only 14, but he did kill a police officer. And he wounded another. So he had no thought process, no remorse in what he did. He just fired off. And, you know, I think that could have been avoided with a good old-fashioned spanking. And yes, I'm going on record saying that I am for spankings. You know, had the father, now if the father was in this was or is in this kid's life, and he went outside and thought that was acceptable, I need to investigate the father. I would investigate the father. Not in terms of why this happened, this situation happened, but just out of curiosity, I would like to know more about the father, because this is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And who gets the worst end of the stick? The law-abiding citizens. We get the worst end of the stick, because we're not running around with switches. Depending on what state you live in, you're not even, it's like tons of paperwork just to even get your hands on a firearm to protect your household and your loved ones. We're living by the book, but yet these young boys are running around with these type of firearms, and we have to duck if we should be in the vicinity of this type of madness. The law-abiding citizens, the 9-to-5ers, we have to be watching over our shoulder no matter where we are, because there's no rules. Daytime, nighttime, in front of police officers, at police officers. What does that tell the rest of the citizens of this country? Are we to feel safe? But again, depending on where you live, it's a bunch of background checks and paperwork for us to get our hands on firearms to protect ourselves. So we're out there like sitting ducks. And again, there was a point in time when I was against the NRA. I thought that, you know, they were just contributing to more violence in this country. But the country is where it's at because we allowed so many guns out there. And I know there's backdoor sales of weapons. It's no mystery. There's backdoor sales of weapons that's getting into the wrong hands, because this country unfortunately has a history of greed, and because of that greed, for the almighty dollar, anyone can get access to anything pretty much. And we can deny it all we want, and we can say, oh, how could you speak about this country like that? You don't deserve to be in this country. There's going to be those people that say that because I said what I just said, but let's not play like this. These things aren't taking place. Let's be honest and be real. There are backdoor sales of weapons, which is how they're making it into these neighborhoods. Because just like as I mentioned, the guns don't fire themselves. These weapons, if they're in secure shops, if they're in the possession of registered owners, they don't just disappear and end up in the streets in the wrong neighborhoods. It doesn't just happen like that. Someone or some people somewhere are selling these weapons to the streets because it's profitable. You could easily find someone in an impoverished neighborhood that's looking for a firearm. It's an easy sale. Easy sale. And you sell it to one, you tell that person, hey, if you got any friends that want some, let them know they could give me a call. I can only imagine how it goes down. I'm not here to speak on that because I'm not, I'm not co-signing that type of activity, but we know this is what happens. This is what happens. Because how does a 14-year-old end up with a firearm to do something like this? I'm gonna do an episode on weapons and my thoughts on it. I'm gonna do an episode just solely devoted to weapons and my thoughts on it. I have something in mind already, but I just wanted to get this story out because it's unfortunate just to hear that the officer didn't even have an opportunity to exit his vehicle. It's like, come on. Now, first and foremost, let me say condolences to him and his family. I also want to say to all police officers that we appreciate your service. All right, let me make that clear. I should have made that clear in the beginning of this video, but we appreciate your service. I'm saying that as a law-abiding citizen. I'm saying that. And I believe I speak for all those other law-abiding citizens because, truth be told, there was a point in time, out of ignorance when I was younger, we're made to think like, oh, police officers are bad. Here's my take on that. There's good cops and there's bad cops. Obviously, when I thank police officers, I'm speaking to all those good cops out there because there's corruption everywhere. All right? Everywhere. Any place that man occupies, there's a possibility of corruption. Period. So I don't care how your suit looks on you, how clean shaven you are, there's corruption everywhere. All right? And that's just a fact. All right, but we appreciate your service, your service as police officers, because someone's got to do that job. Because if you got 14-year-olds shooting at police officers, could you imagine what would be going on in these streets if the police officers didn't exist? So I'm not going to sit here on this channel and act like police officers are horrible, because we need them. Let's be clear. All right? Let's be clear on this channel. I want that to be known. Police officers, if you hear me speaking, you are needed, and we thank you for everything that you do. You literally put your life on the line for us all, so we appreciate you. And again, condolences to the family of Joseph Azcona. Very unfortunate. Fathers, I'm not saying you have to stay with the mothers, because I don't know why some of these fathers disappear. But if you have young boys, particularly young boys, because we're not hearing girls doing stuff like this, and I'm not saying girls can't, but fathers, if you have young boys, you got to sit them down and give them the do's and don'ts. At the bare minimum, that's what you have to do. All right? And that goes for all fathers, because this is unacceptable. And trust me, had that 14-year-old had a father in his life, because I'm going to assume he doesn't have a father in his life. We'll probably find out more details later on. If the father was given a good old spanking, a good old ass whipping, he wouldn't even have thought to raise a gun at a police officer. All right. So I'm going to assume he comes from a single household, a single mother household. And if the single mothers are offended by that, that's fine. I stand on it. All right. Because I don't believe boys that are raised by their fathers who are disciplining them, are going out there doing stuff like this. And that's my take on it. But as always, I appreciate all of you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.